A few of the automations that we have are for off hours. When I leave my room, I'm not leaving the light turned on for the entire weekend. Have it turned off. Most of the time, if I'm leaving work, I close my laptop and it's done. And we are sharing that same information with engineering to where it has actually saved in a single environment about $2,000 a month.
Dana Lezcano, thank you very much for being part of the future of cloud optimization. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Dana, you were one of the OGs of FinOps. You were clearly in the premise when you were naming it FinOps and the journey itself. Tell us a little bit about the origin and how you guys evolved.
So at that time, FinOps wasn't even a formal concept. It was something that as a company, we all aligned with. And when I say everyone, it was cloud ops, finance, developers, engineering, customer service, marketing. We all, at the end of it, wanted to manage cost and also ensure that there was customer satisfaction. Because at the end of it all, it's about customer satisfaction without breaking the bank. So first discussions, we're trying to figure out what are those avenues that we need to go down. What are the best practices that the crawl, walk, run? How do we define that? What is defined within that? So once we came away with that, our engineering teams started implementing that on their end, whether that was people that were turning things off after they were done, or they're checking cost. This was back in the days when US simple monthly calculator was available. That is no longer available, but they would go in and create their designs in there. Okay, well, it's going to estimate to cost this much a month. And we did similar things with customers on the end user side. And we helped them understand this is a different way to look at it and better ways to get people aligned across the divisions.
Now, coming to the cost of it, what are the main challenges? How did you resolve it?
The biggest one is truly getting different teams to understand a single thought or a single purpose. Finance doesn't care what instance type you're using. And engineers, at the end of the day, really don't care how much it costs. So it was working to get multiple personas to understand finance and engineering can align on a singular subject within various avenues. So yes, there are costs associated with it. Finance isn't trying to take away from you developing, an engineer developing, but within reason. You can enhance performance without costing an arm and a leg.
Now, translation, how do you translate cost to something that engineers understand and appreciate?
That is translated into what makes up the engineering data set. So whether that's the CPU, whether it's the storage, those are concepts that an engineer will understand because that's what they're looking at when they're deploying. They want to make sure that everything is going to have good performance. It's not going to lag at all. And you have to have your CPU, your memory, the network, all of that has to be included. And then we add that component of, oh, hey, we can have the exact same things, have great performance, and still have lower costs. It's a way to explain it to engineers to help them to understand it's not, no, I'm not trying to take away your new shiny toy. I'm trying to help you with better performance and then also better company objectives.
So typically when you have a recommendation, you would translate it before it lands in the engineering dashboard as to, yes, you want to get your $10 down, but the language for that is like get CPU down by 10%. Doesn't make sense?
Correct. Yes. It's about the performance, and that also translates into freeing up the budget which absolutely makes engineers happy when they want to purchase new shiny toys.
I see.
Tools. And if we can free up the budget, then we can absolutely get those services enabled that you want.
And in that process, generally, when you give that recommendation,
Mhm.
one is accepting that recommendation, like having an agreement on the recommendation. And second would there be concern from them as to, can we rely on this data, or should we do further analysis before we take that action? And is it going to impact my performance negatively?
The question on performance is 100% always a concern with engineering. They want to make sure that just because it's quote unquote cheaper for finance, that it's not going to affect performance. We use a tool called Cloud Chipper that helps us monitor the performance. It shows us the CPU metrics as well as the memory metrics. That gives us our engineers and finance that visibility of, okay, dropping this down in size is not going to affect performance if something is only 30% utilized.
So it's Cloud Chipper translation that's helping engineers get convinced that what the NIU say, and this is how it gets translated to engineering, and that's how they execute it.
Absolutely. It's that visibility. What's important for collaborating with multiple departments is that visibility, transparency. I'm not trying to hide anything from other teams. We want engineering, we want finance to see everything, but in language that they understand. If I give an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers to engineers, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. If I give them a data table and a dashboard that has CPU and memory metrics on it, it's nice and pretty and colorful, makes it super easy, quick, they can load up things. That is something that they'll understand, and that makes it easier for them. So my team sets up those dashboards within Cloud Chipper to help with that. So it gives the engineers visibility that they need, that's not so much focused on the cost side of things.
So a slightly different variant of that thesis, right? How do you ensure the timeliness or ensure that the recommendations are executed to the fullest and timely manner?
Of course, we give timelines, deadlines of, hey, I'd like this completed by XYZ date. If it is not completed by XYZ date, then that's when we enable the Cloud Chipper automation to clean up those environments and change the environments accordingly. For example, a few of the automations that we have are for off hours. When I leave my room, I'm not leaving the light turned on for the entire weekend. I have it turned off. Most of the time, if I'm leaving work, I close my laptop and it's done. And we are sharing that same information with engineering to where it has actually saved in a single environment about $2,000 a month. And it was just enabled in November.
$2,000 a month by just shutting it down at the right time.
Get one environment, and we have multiple environments.
Of course. Perfect. So now let's go into the details of what are the recent optimization project that you have led, and what are some of the numbers and the KPIs, and how did you track?
Absolutely. So my favorite one that I love to talk about is when I was first brought on into my current company, Digital.ai, our GCP environment was out of control. There was things running in there that people didn't know what was running, and they didn't know who owned it. So I worked with the various engineering teams to go in, tag what they were using. Tagging is it's very important within cleaning up environments. So they tagged what they were using with our standards that we have defined. And then we went through and started cleaning things up with automations and just determinations. We were able to go from about 50,000 to 2,000. And to this day, we're running at about 500 a month for this support / testing environment, since we are primarily an AWS shop.
Wow.
With that segues me to an AWS right sizing challenge that we had with Jenkins. And Jenkins was deployed. It was set up with an old environment that we had, and the amount of instances that were linked to it was excessive. Barely of any of them were in use. And we're able to capture that with utilizing the CPU and the memory metrics within Cloud Shipper to see, okay, well, within the past 30 days, these have only been utilized 3%, some of them even less than that. So we were able to go in, double check. We spot checked a few of them, saw that everything was in alignment. And then we used that tool to go ahead and clean up those environments. And on the other ones that were in use a little bit more frequently, but still very low utilization, we dropped the size on them down to, I think it might have been T2 largest from a 4 extra large. That was a benefit. No one lost performance. We ran tests over the weekend. And I'm grateful for the team that worked with me over the weekend, because no one wants to work on weekend. But we came out of that saving a couple $1,000s a month. We went in that environment. It was around $48,000 a month. And we are currently running that environment at about $22,000 a month.
That is significant. And weekend team was probably the eng team and the finance team, I'm assuming, together.
No finance team. I kind of filled in for them. It was definitely the engineering team. There was 2 leaders that were with us. But yeah, the engineering team of only 2 people that weekend and 2 leaders and myself, we knocked it out pretty quickly.
That's an excellent, exciting story. So good to you and the team.
I was impressed. I was very happy.
That's impressive.
Everyone was excited afterwards. So yeah.
Once you optimize, how do you keep that momentum?
That is automation, automation, automation. I do not want to go in and manually do things all the time, nor do the engineers. So we have certain automations in place, again, with Cloud Shipper, that if resources don't have a specific set of tags, we also have an expiry tag on there. So if it is a certain date, it will get flagged, and then it will kick into our automation workloads to either stop the instance, take a snapshot and delete it, or just completely terminate it, dependent on what it is, to prevent costs from slowly climbing again, as well as the FinOps team within Digital.ai regularly meets with the engineering project leaders and gives them updates of, hey, this is where your team was at last month. This is where you're at this month. Yeah, that checks and balances to just make sure that everyone, again, has that visibility. And if someone needs help with accessing or seeing how to read the dashboards, we make sure that they have all of that without any issues.
Proper alignment, clarity, execution, and automation. Okay, that's how I see it. Okay. Now, I mean, would there be, or were there instances where performance had an impact and you had to roll back and things like that, or was it all cleanly done?
There was, but we had tested it in our dev environment first, and we saw the performance drop within a couple minutes to where we pushed it back rapidly. No customers were affected. So we put certain tags on those instances to let us know they can never be touched, no matter what it shows. They can't be touched.
Got it. Okay. So you had a pre-prod environment that you could experiment with. You saw the impact, you rolled it back, and then production was safe. Okay. So that's a good tip for the audience. So just in case if you're looking at optimization, especially for critical ones, have a pre-prod ready where you could probably try some of these. Got it.
Absolutely. And most of our deployments start in our dev environments first, make sure everything is running, get it optimized as best as possible, and then move it over into our
Into the got it. But was scale ever a problem? Like in dev environment, you did see that symptom at all, but in production, you started seeing the symptom, or ever the case?
Sometimes with our larger customers, that does happen. We get a notice very quickly by utilizing various tools like PagerDuty. If there's any drop in anything,
I see.
Grafana as well, we utilize. So we're able to catch those within minutes. It's not hours. Hey, this customer is, trying to access this and there is a lag a little bit longer than it should be. Most of the time we catch it before our customers do. And by the time we notice it, it's already resolved.
Does it slow down the optimization process? Because that's something that others in the podcast have shared with us, right? So when they try to optimize something, and these kind of accidents are super expensive at times, and that might stall the project saying, you know what, we're trying to optimize something, but it's not working. Now, see, it starts, right? That becomes now a thing that might slow us down. How do you tackle that?
Yes, that is very much a thing that arguments that you will get from engineering.
Yeah.
We did what you said, and then now it's messed us up.
Yes.
Because we are all held accountable for our own projects, we're pretty aligned that we don't get a lot of pushback in that matter. So even though, yes, it does slow us down a little bit, no problem. Let's look at this from a different angle. Do we move to Graviton for these instances? And if so, what does that look like? What does that design entail? So then we'll work together for that design. The nice part that I love about being a FinOps SME is that my mindset is not just finance. It's not just engineering. I can look at things from both perspectives and help other teams see that. So if someone needs help with a design, I don't have to wait for somebody to come up with that. I can help them out with that design, and I'll also have the cost associated with it as well. There's a few people within various projects that I will typically reach out to if I need assistance with anything. Hey, I don't have access to this. Can you go ahead and launch it? They'll launch it, and I can then track it on the back end. And also, I don't want more access than I need. So that is a security thing that also can affect the FinOps optimizations. If people have more access than what they need, they can just start deploying things willy-nilly and with no understanding of where the cost is going.
Now, KPIs, right? Especially when you're on a project, one thing that always helps is measuring what you're going after. So what are the KPIs outside of cost savings? That's a direct KPI. Yes, that's there. But outside of cost savings, what other KPIs do you measure, or do you advise us to measure?
So we do a lot with outside of cost is our user experiences. So we do track that as well. If there's any things that they're needing, so more of the customer service side of things. Forecasting, we want to get ahead of any cost savings. We want to see where we're trending within our cloud environments. And we occasionally will do this within our tooling as well. So tooling like Grafana and PagerDuty, we want to trend and track those trends to see, are we growing? Are we not? Things like FigJam that are very user specific, that is something that we track as well. So there's another project that they let the FinOps team know, but they handle that one actually really well. I've never had any issues of, hey guys, this is creeping up there. What are we doing? So they do track that. We also have people just take ownership of their projects. I don't know what's going on in every single project within Digital.ai. I can't say that I'm going to ever know what's going on within the entire company. So therefore, that's why we have specific leaders that we work with that let us know if there's any changes. There's a great team that we have based out of India that oftentimes lets me know, hey, we're expecting a cost increase because we are testing X, Y, and Z. It's only going to be running for this period of time. So they let us know again, and that helps us with our forecasting as well. But really that visibility is the biggest key to all of that. If without the visibility across the various projects, we don't have any of that.
Now, in your company and in your experience, you have seen FinOps in a startup, FinOps in an extremely large company. How can we distinguish between these two, and what can we learn from small to large, or large to small?
So with big companies, the issue that I see there is the lack of visibility again, and accountability with that as well. No, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And so it's about creating a unified team to ensure that that is met. There was a company that I worked for, PennyMac, which is a mortgage company years ago. And when I first was brought into their brand new FinOps team, no one knew what other projects were doing. Everyone was very much siloed. I mean, this is a very large corporation. So everything was very siloed. Everyone had different tool sets. So myself and the others within that FinOps team worked to align what is all of the tooling that everyone is using, and how can we best make sure that everyone's on the same topic. So that's when ARC was built. So an architecture review board was created within PennyMac to have engineering come in, and anyone that wanted to get any kind of tooling or design or anything implemented, they were brought in. FinOps was added to that. The finance team was added on that. C-suite members were added. Everyone was part of those discussions. They were very, very organized, because a company that large, they have to be organized. People were given a specific time slot that they had to speak within. They had to have multiple forms filled out prior. So they had to have their depth of, hey, this is what I want to build. And then from there, they also had to have the cost associated with it as well, because the finance would want to know, okay, how much is this going to cost us if we're implementing it? So those review boards, technical review boards, everyone calls them something different, CAB, they're all the same. But those really help to align the various departments within a large organization. Smaller organizations, they're very agile. You don't have that siloed setup, because since it is so small, it's almost like everyone is sitting in a conference room working together. And when things need to be deployed, it's very quick. So if I go into a small startup type organization and say, hey, we need to drop this cost by $30 a day, they're going to figure it out pretty quickly. And I am a little bit competitive, and I feel like other engineer mindsets are as well, to where gamifying things always works. It brings out that competitive nature of all of us adults that want to go back to our childhood and play games. So by doing that, it doesn't matter if it's a small organization or a large organization. If you make things about competition and this team is winning and, oh, this team is doing better than this one, it's going to drive that accountability and that transparency across teams versus having that siloed divisions.
Yeah, it has to be an initiative and gamification like that. All right, so now coming back to moving forward with our AI and FinOps, right? What do you think would be the role? What is the current role, and where is it going to take us?
So AI is I can see helping FinOps in a good way. Like I said earlier, I don't want to do everything manual all the time. I want some help, especially for the smaller organizations. they may only have 1 or 2 people in their FinOps division. So those 1 or 2 people are tracking everything for the entire company. And by utilizing AI, of course, you're going to need those checks and balances still, but it can pull in more real-time optimization versus being more reactive. So you can get that, hey, we just noticed a change in this environment. What's going on? And instead of getting an email that is an anomaly alert, you get in real time, AI will go ahead and take over and say, hey, let's drop this back down. It doesn't need it for whatever reason. It spiked, and adjust still keeping the performance, but adjusting the cost. While Cloud Shipper helps to optimize those multi-cloud environments with those types of assets, they're slowly innovating with the reporting with AI to get a little bit more in depth. A human can only see so much. And that predictive ability is very, very helpful. I don't want it taking my job though. So I don't foresee it taking my job, but I see it enhancing FinOps as we know it now.
Yeah. In fact, this is where we generally play. And I always tell this, right? So if AI were to take your job, but you should not have a job in the first place, right?
Right.
So simple as that. Some of the things that the industry sees as challenge today is what we generally try to address, right? One is accidents during optimization. That's a no-go for Sedai. For us, for the company, we have zero tolerance for mistakes. This AI cannot make mistakes. It can avoid. It cannot see an opportunity, but it cannot make a mistake. So that's something that, in our mind, AIs can guarantee. Right? You will not have an event, or a bad event, or an optimization problem because of performance problem because of an optimization. That, I think, is an area where Cloud Shipper is also walking there. That's an area where, in my mind, AI can help. AI can make your mission a lot smoother without a lot of hiccups. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And AI can be scary at first for organizations. But if you start in a dev environment and slowly look at what the benefit is, it can absolutely help in large organizations.
So generally, I always say this with any optimization tool. In fact, there are only 2 numbers in play in most cases, right? You're paying for N number of things and you're only using M number of things. So N plus N has to be deleted.
Yes.
Right. That generally is the key. And that's what all these optimization companies do. Where they don't play and they should all start playing is really N to M is not a guaranteed optimization. That's what then you come in and say, that's not how you go from N to M. That's what I'm going to tell you the smart way to go to N to M. That's where you come in and say, this is how I make it risk-free. But that's where AI can help and say, I will show you a path from N to M if M is real with 0 incidents. That path is only going to be known to me. It is going to be hard for engineers to figure out because it's quite boring to figure that out. That's where AI shines. Yeah. Now your prediction on where you would see the future of cloud optimization, especially with AI is, right? How do you see a small company would optimize in the next 5 years? The same thing with a large company. Would they be still looking at reports, clicking, or would they be giving it to a tool and say, you know what, I do not know, but this is what I want to do. You guys figure out and just do it.
I think that once they have taken the initial steps to optimization, I feel that will push people kind of over the edge to have it fully autonomous to where they're not having to manually do things anymore. And then that gives engineers and other leaders time for other projects. But you have to make those first steps with tagging, with visibility, with getting all of the right people in the room at the right time to discuss those things and making sure that everyone's aligned on the same goal.
Now, this is for the people who are trying to get on this FinOps journey, right? For someone who's trying to set this up themselves as a journey, to start this journey, what are the 3 top recommendations from you to set themselves up for success?
Well, as I've been sharing this entire time, visibility. Get the visibility, use various tools. The native tools are helpful, but they don't show you as much as a tool like we use, like CloudShipper does. It doesn't show you it in a nice formatted view to where then if I'm curious about CPU and all of the utilization within a native tool, I'm going to have to go into that specific service to dig into that one instance versus a lot of the tools on the market, the FinOps tools, give you that visibility to where you're not having to click in multiple different places. It makes it so much easier and also efficient. And then, of course, getting those people, the correct people included in those FinOps journeys for that accountability. So making sure that your engineering is aligned, your finance, your operations, your marketing, everyone is aligned, customer service team, everyone's aligned. This is our step forward. And this is how we're going to keep moving forward in a good direction. Good is different for various organizations, but in the best direction for what your organization is running. And then, of course, my favorite, automation. The sooner that you automate, the better. If you are trying to play catch up, it takes substantially longer than if you're just beginning, getting everything set up right at the beginning. It makes optimizations, cost savings, waste avoidance, all of that so much easier, and you're not then backpedaling later on.
So observability or visibility, accountability, alignment, automation.
Yep.
Correct. You mentioned about the performance slowdown because of optimization. Was there any events or errors that also happened due to that? And how can one avoid it? You optimize something, let's say you optimize something, and something just stopped working or it slowed down so much that, you know what, I just saw that error happening. So I have to report.
So we have not experienced this, but I was part of a test, a beta service that went out within a previous company that I was in. And I was one of the users that experienced a complete failure on my end, the white screen of death, as everyone refers to. And it was based on a recommendation that a few engineers had suggested to help with cost savings. And there was a few of us on the internal teams that said, hey, we'll sign up, hit our accounts with this new update. And it did crash our systems. So the new update did not work. We learned that it could not be run on Graviton. Not everything, even though Graviton in some instances does save money, there are some applications it just won't run. And so we learned, okay, this can never, ever be Graviton. Yes, it costs a little bit more by not being able to be Graviton, but the service just won't run. And no customer is going to be happy at that point.
I think there are some libraries that can help you do some Graviton tests, probably on an automated fashion, but still it has to be tested on Graviton. And now, not really a fun question, but still a question, right? If there was a Cloud Olympics, what would be an event that you would dominate?
I would have to say I would dominate the optimization marathon. How fast can you clear up services? What's the visibility on it? But all of that optimization without sacrificing the performance. Because just because you cleaned it up doesn't necessarily mean it's still going to have that great level of performance that it previously had. So the precision and everything, and the deep understanding of the nitty-gritty details of cost and everything within the cloud, that's where I would take over.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so very much for all the insights. It was super fun talking to you. Thanks again for all your thoughtful comments on our questions too. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suresh, for having me. It's been a pleasure.